Good morning, everybody. It is very early Thursday morning, and I hope everybody is having a blessed day. Welcome to He Set Me Free. My name is Robert. Yesterday I spent a majority of my day on Lyft, and it was one of my better days that I've had on Lyft staying locally. The day prior was an okay day. It was pouring down. It rained all day long, and then I split my time up between Uber and Lyft. But yesterday there was something that I noticed that due to the day prior where I made, I think it was $58 on Lyft, they tried to recoup some of that back. They kept trying to send me into the heart of North Waco. And whenever you start seeing trips like this, specifically in this market, that says that, and you're looking at the price because you know it's supposed to be more, that they're taking more than they should and they're trying to get you to drive farther because how do they earn their money? For pickup. And you get into these areas and it's harder and harder to take shortcuts because it doesn't matter which way you go, you either add miles to it or you stick with the route and you're not going to get over on them. But yesterday I declined several rides in this area. And took a little break from it, got over on the Uber, so on and so forth. But I only had 3 rides on Uber yesterday. But then I picked up a regular on Lyft, carried him to the VA. Then they sent me back into North Waco where I picked somebody else up. And then my day started to turn around. Declining rides here and there that were obviously more than... They were taking more and paying out less. It was at this point, they weren't even trying to hide it. But then I had gotten a $23 ride out in China Springs. I had taken some ladies to the airport, and it wasn't that far away. Well, they tried to get me to go the long way around. Well, I took a shortcut. It went from 5 miles down to 2.5 miles for pickup. And then she was going over to Bosque, and I took shortcuts over to Bosque. I trimmed, literally, I kid you not, I trimmed 4 miles off that drive too. Because the lady was waiting on prescriptions, I sat out in the parking lot for 20 to 30 minutes. Got paid wait time, excellent money. So then they tried to get me to take the long way back to her house. I took the exact same way, shaved off 4 miles. So I cost them money, and I made more money on that ride than they wanted me to make. Because of the wait time, I ended up making like $35 on that ride. So then they send me over into the Spiegelville area to pick somebody up. 7 miles to pick up. $13. To the VA, 17 miles away. So they got over on me on that ride. They sent me a ride, took it away from me. Then sent me another ride, a short distance ride. I declined that ride. Because when it was all said and done for the $4.17, they wanted me to drive 7 miles total in start to finish. Nope. Declined it. Then they sent me out to Lacey Lakeview to pick somebody up to bring them back into Target. I took shortcuts going out. I trimmed 4 miles off of that ride because it was supposed to have been 11 miles to pick up if I would have took the route that they said. And I trimmed like 2 miles coming back into town because I went the back way. At which point afterwards I got off of Lyft because I hit my 20 rides for $20. I actually beat Lyft yesterday because every ride that I had, I shaved miles, and I do mean miles, off of every trip. So they tried to get even with me by sending me farther out because that last ride was $13 and some change. And they got over on me a little bit, but not as much as they wanted to. Because start to finish of that trip would have been 20 miles for $13. And I ended up making it about 16 or 17 miles total. And that's how you get over on Lyft. You can on Uber, but it's harder on Uber because Uber's algorithm will outmaneuver you. Lyft won't. Lyft, because Lyft does flat rates. It doesn't matter. You can take shortcuts to and shortcuts from, and you still get paid the same. On Uber, you're forced to take the route coming back because that's how you make your money. Going to, it doesn't matter. Coming back, yeah, it does. So I started noticing the games that Lyft was playing because, like I said, I made $58 the day before, or maybe it was 54, and I did decent on Uber because I split my time evenly between those two. And then I tried doing Uber yesterday early because I went into town earlier than I typically would to go get gas. And right off the bat, someone that I've picked up 3 times and I've given him a 1-star rating. And then Uber tried to send me further into North Waco. I declined that ride, got off, got onto Lyft, had a ride. Then I got off Lyft, got back on Uber, picked somebody up, got off Uber, got back on Lyft, and then I pretty much stayed on Lyft. I would hit last ride on Lyft or decline rides. I declined 5 rides total with Lyft yesterday. But Lyft also took 5 rides from me and gave them to other drivers. Because that's what they do. That's another scheme what they do to keep passengers on the application. They'll send it to a driver with no intentions of allowing that driver to keep that ride, to hold that passenger in place so that they can't switch over to Lyft or decline the ride altogether. And then they'll move it to another driver that they know is about to open up. So that's probably one of the biggest schemes that Lyft does, is they will send rides out to drivers to hold passengers in place, knowing that there's a driver that's going to open up or in the area and they're just waiting for him to clear so that they can pass that ride on to them. But then they want to take acceptance points from drivers for declining rides when they take rides from drivers all the time. And if they do that, then they should be adding points to us, not taking points from us. Because we're actually doing them the favor. We don't have to accept that ride, and they could lose the ride altogether because the passenger will go on to Uber to actually get a ride, because Uber doesn't play those games. Once you accept a ride on Uber, that is your ride until that passenger cancels or you cancel the ride. But Lyft, on the other hand, with their scheming ways, this is the games that they play. So, and the rides that they did take away from me was decent money, and I wouldn't have had to drive that much. But that's what they do. So you have to be very, very wise at what Lyft does. And like I indicated the day before with what I found out with Uber, I've always known Lyft has been shady as hell. I've always known it. There is no mistaking between the two. Lyft is the devil. So you have to be crafty with Lyft. You have to know what rides to take, what rides not to take. Accept rides with the full intentions of canceling. And you have to play that number game. Because like with Uber, the higher that your acceptance rating gets on Lyft, the worse the rides get. And the higher the acceptance rating that you get on Uber, the lower your rates get. This I have found out. This is why I keep my acceptance rating right around 86, 87% with a cancellation rating of at least 3 or 4. Because that forces rides, you don't get those quick turnarounds. It forces it to other drivers. And Uber knows this. I've been playing this game for a year now. And then all of a sudden I'll be driving, and all of a sudden it's at 90%. Oh, got to start declining rides, get it back down again. And the reason why I know that they know this is because I can decline 4 or 5 rides in a row, and that acceptance rating won't move. It will not move. So I like to keep it low, because whenever it's low, I make a lot more money on Uber. And it keeps them from forcing those short rides down my throat to slow down my earnings. If I can get those rides that they're paying out a little bit more, and they're coming into town, say you want like 12-minute, 15-minute rides, 18-minute rides. The lowest you really want to go is 7-8 minute rides. 6 minute is okay, depending on the area, but nothing under 6 minutes. You never want anything under 6 minutes. 6 minutes is depending on where you're going. It can be anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5 miles. You really prefer that 12-minute ride because that's 6.5, typically 6.5 minutes, depending on where you're going. Sometimes if you're traveling in Waco, that's a 4.5 mile ride. So you have to kind of get a trick, keep it locked away up here of what your mileage is. 5 minutes, that's under 2.5 miles. You know you're going to get screwed on that ride. 6 minutes, you're on that border. It's typically like 2.8 miles. They're still going to pay you base on that. Your rides for Uber does not go up until you start getting over 4 miles. Because anything under 4 miles, they take a majority of that earnings of that trip. And I think drivers are really starting to figure that out here in Waco. Because if I'm getting a ride out in Belmead, Lacey, Lakeview area, and I'm in far South Waco, that means every driver between me and that passenger has declined that ride. And typically, I decline it as well, too, unless it's a long-distance pickup, and it has to be a decent long-distance pickup. I'm talking about 4 to 5 minute out. 1 minute, I take shortcuts. 2 minutes, I take shortcuts. 3 minutes, I'll take shortcuts. Because at that point, you're really not losing anything. You're talking about 30 cents at best. It starts climbing the higher that premium pickup outlook is. So, and 9 times out of 10, I don't follow their route. I take shortcuts if I can, regardless, because all they're trying to do is get me to drive farther. So, if I can take a shortcut, I do. And come to find out, a lot of times, I still get paid the same. I still get paid premium pickup because the algorithm has already got that set. But with that, there is a caveat in there that they will try to recoup that which you took a shortcut, so that they will send you into an area where you can't take shortcuts. They try to pull a Lyft, but I'm a little smarter than Lyft is. Lyft is not. It's a poor app. But for those of us that have been driving with Lyft for a while, can remember back in the day where they didn't pay us for long distance pickups at all. You made your money at pickup, but that's when they paid better. It wasn't until that they went to flat rates that they started screwing drivers over. But they couldn't get anybody picked up on those long distance pickups. So what they do was they changed the game and did a flat rate. And thought that they were getting over on drivers. But if you take shortcuts, take those shortcuts to go pick them up because you will get paid the same. Take shortcuts to drop those drivers off too. This is how you beat the app. On Uber, you have to take the route. And if you can, sneak in a little extra 1/4 mile to take away from Uber. But always take shortcuts to pick up. You will still get paid the same. So these are just some insights, for drivers out there. And if you're in a market like Waco is, which is a lot smaller market, say like Temple or Killeen or maybe some of the outskirts of your major metropolitan areas, then videos that I post will be a lot helpful to you because it's taken me 5 years to figure this stuff out. And if you feel like that you're being held back on Uber and that you're out there spending a lot more time on the application trying to make more money, but you can't, but you're not making more money, that's because they're not going to allow you to make more money. They have capped you. I found this out last week, which is the video that I did. And because the more money that you make, the more successful you are, the better off that you are, and you're taking more money home. They don't want that. They want you to make as little as possible so that you will stay out on the roads driving more for them, which is why I started to see that I was no longer making $80 before 9 o'clock. I was making less. They were trying to keep me out on the roads. And if they can achieve that, then they win. So, excuse me. Which is why it's always good to split your time between Uber and Lyft. Because if you're doing that, the algorithms or the AI will pick up on that, and you'll start getting better rides. Because they want to keep you on the platform. If you are bouncing back and forth and hitting that brake button on Lyft, or hitting last ride on, or hitting brake button on Uber and last ride on Lyft, and then logging off after you drop a passenger off and moving over to the other platform and starting your application prior to the end of a ride, do that too, so that you have a ride that you can go to on the next platform. You're winning. So it all depends on the amount if it's on Lyft, and distance if it's on Uber. So I hope this helps everybody out. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to y'all later.